For over 4 decades, he was a ghost, a predator who haunted California in the 1970s and 80s, committing crimes so terrifying that entire communities lived in fear. He had many names: the East Area Rapist, the original Night Stalker, and eventually, the Golden State Killer. This is the story of Joseph James DeAngelo and how DNA technology finally brought him to justice. It began in April 1974 in Visalia, California. A burglar started breaking into homes, over 100 of them between 1974 and 1975, stealing small items and ransacking in bizarre ways. On September 11, 1975, he shot and killed Professor Claude Snelling, who tried to stop him from kidnapping his daughter. After that murder, the Visalia crimes suddenly stopped. But the terror was only beginning. On June 18, 1976, 100 miles north in Sacramento, a masked man began breaking into homes at night. He'd wake his victims with a flashlight in their faces, tie them up with shoelaces, and if a man was present, he'd stack dishes on his back, threatening to kill everyone if he heard them fall. Between June 1976 and July 1979, this attacker committed at least 50 sexual assaults across Northern California. He was meticulous, stalking neighborhoods for weeks, learning his victims' routines, unlocking windows in advance. Then, in July 1979, those attacks stopped, but something darker had begun. On December 30, 1979, in Santa Barbara County, a couple was murdered in their home. This marked the beginning of a new series of killings. Over the next 7 years, until May 1986, at least 10 people were murdered in Southern California. The methods were similar to the Northern California attacks, but for decades, investigators didn't connect them. After May 4, 1986, the crimes stopped completely. The killer vanished. For 15 years, the cases went cold. Then, in 2001, DNA testing linked the East Area Rapist to the Southern California murders. They were the same person. In March 2013, the FBI gave him a new name: the Golden State Killer. Despite having DNA evidence, composite sketches, and thousands of tips over the years, investigators couldn't identify him. But one investigator, Paul Holes, never gave up. For 24 years, from 1994 to 2018, he worked the case, preserving evidence and waiting for technology to catch up. That moment came in early 2018. A revolutionary technique called forensic genetic genealogy emerged. In February 2018, Paul Holes and FBI investigator Barbara Ray Venter uploaded the Golden State Killer's DNA to GED Match, a genealogy site. They got hits, distant relatives. From there, they built family trees going back generations. The research took weeks, but one name emerged: Joseph James DeAngelo, a 72-year-old former police officer living in Citrus Heights, California. Here's the shocking part. DeAngelo had been a cop in Exeter, near Visalia, from 1973 to 1976, right during the ransacking crimes. Then, he worked for the Auburn Police Department from 1976 to 1979, during the East Area Rapist attacks. He was fired in 1979 for shoplifting, and that's when the Northern California attacks stopped. To confirm their suspect, investigators collected DeAngelo's discarded DNA in April 2018. It matched. On April 24, 2018, at 5:30 p.m., Joseph James DeAngelo was arrested at his home. The Golden State Killer was finally in custody after 44 years. On June 29, 2020, to avoid the death penalty, DeAngelo pleaded guilty to 13 counts of murder and admitted to numerous other crimes. Victims and families who had waited decades finally faced him in court. On August 21, 2020, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Multiple consecutive life sentences. He will die in prison. The Golden State Killer case changed criminal investigations forever. Since 2018, forensic genetic genealogy has helped solve hundreds of cold cases across America. For over 40 years, Joseph James DeAngelo walked free while his victims carried the weight of his crimes. But on that day in April 2018, justice finally arrived. The ghost was caught. The monster was just a man, and that man will spend the rest of his life behind bars.